Dare to enter Crow's Quill's books, where tales of forgotten realms and fearless souls come alive. Today's journey, Raven's Prophecy. The Elder Trials, chapters 6 to 7, by Mark and James Lindsay. Will you uncover the truth hidden in the shadows? Chapter 6. The moment Astrid awoke, she felt different. She couldn't explain the sensation either. It was more than just waking refreshed. It was like she had been rejuvenated, alive. She peered outside her bedroom window and noticed with horror that the sun was well and truly up. Quickly throwing her clothes on, she raced to the kitchen, worried that there was something horribly wrong. Mother. Father, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I slept in. Today, of all days, Astrid called out, entering the kitchen, and finding both her parents waiting patiently. I'm so sorry, she started, then noticed their warm, smiling faces. What is it? You really don't remember, Druid said, amused. Astrid shook her head. It's your birthday, silly goose, Ulrich added with a chuckle. Astrid sighed and rolled her eyes. I completely forgot. What with all the talk about the Elder Trials, Astrid said. We kind of thought as much, which is why we were able to keep this a secret from you, Druid said, and produced a parcel from behind her back. She handed it to the young girl, who could barely contain her excitement. What is it? Astrid asked, as she untied the twine that held the brown paper wrapping together. Why don't you just open it, and find out what it is for yourself? Ulrich grinned. Astrid's patience was at an end, as she finally tore through the paper to what lay inside. Is this the secret project? Astrid asked excitedly. No, but I guarantee you'll love it just the same, Druid said. Astrid held up a beautifully stitched leather coat, deep brown, with a wolf pelt collar. It's beautiful, Astrid whispered, as she studied the intricate detail that had been put in. On the back, a circle containing 2 ravens, their heads chasing the other, one black, the other white. The image had been painstakingly stitched together with different shades of dyed hide. As you know, your name means raven, and I believe it to be your spirit animal smart, curious, and tireless in their pursuits. When you compete in the Elder Trials, think of how the raven solves any puzzle, and also how much your mother and I love you, Ulrich said. Put it on, Druid said, her eyes getting red and moist. Astrid threw on her present, and was amazed to find it fit her perfectly. I love it, Astrid said, and flew into her parents' arms. There are many hidden pockets within the jacket, and a few surprises that I left for you, in case of emergencies, Ulrich said with pride. I love you both, Astrid said sincerely, and hugged them both again. Every man, woman, and child had gathered for the opening ceremony of the Elder Trials. The central area of the village was filled with merchants selling all manner of food and beverage, the excitement of the crowd evident as they all awaited the arrival of the 13 participants, the largest assortment of competitors in over 100 years. In the very center stood an ornate timber podium, complete with flags and banners depicting the original families and famous battle honors. All the teenage children had been spoken to weeks earlier by the Thorn Trinity, and were aware of how the opening ceremony would occur. Laughter and merriment was loud and joyous. Then at midday, a large armored soldier from the Grey Watch made his way through the pressing crowd, in his hand not a weapon, but a large black goat's horn. Standing before the dais, he raised the horn to his lips and blew. The horn was known as the Call of Darmu, won in combat from the Rangbor tribe, when they unsuccessfully attempted to invade 400 years earlier. It was taken from the corpse of their war chief, their scattered numbers seen fleeing in their boats across the water from where they came. Ever since then, the horn was used to announce great ceremonies, as well as signal the arrival of threats. The moment the horn sounded, the crowd fell silent. This was immediately followed by the rhythmic beat of a robust drum, normally used for keeping the tempo of a longboat. The village mass parted, and out marched the Thorn Trinity, dressed in their finest armor. They walked towards the podium and up its timber steps. The crowd cheered and clapped. The 3 lords stood shoulder to shoulder, waving to the people, letting the festivities of the day wash over them. The drums stopped, and the crowd fell silent. Raggi and Forsberg nodded to Lord Asulf, who stepped forward to address the crowd. Welcome to this year's Elder Trials. As everyone is aware, this great tradition was started 500 years ago by Tory Thorn, a direct descendant of our very own founding father Caddock Thorn. It was created to dispel the unhappiness felt by many who were unsure of their place or purpose within the village. By using the pure magic of the glade and the guidance of our ancestors, we are able to determine the true worth of every child once they turn the age of 13. That is, all except the one that wins the trials. 13 tasks meant to test the mettle of every competitor, which at the very end signifies the transition to becoming an adult. The one that wins the most tasks is crowned the king, or queen, of the Elder Trials. They, and they alone, will have the sole right to choose their own destiny and pick their own master to serve. There is also a large dowry that accompanies this win. So, without further wait, let us meet our 13 competitors, Lord Asulf announced, and was greeted by more cheers from the crowd. Lord Asulf stepped back and was replaced by Lord Forsberg, who rolled out a piece of yellowed parchment. Rangvald Ackerman, Lord Forsberg called out. A tall, brown-haired boy with a skinny neck and pimples on his face stepped cautiously from the edge of the crowd towards the dais. The village cheered enthusiastically. After a few nervous steps, his confidence quickly grew. Now smiling, he took his place at the bottom of the podium, the crowd hollering good-naturedly. Emma Borg was the next called, a short and petite girl with blonde braids and intelligent eyes. She was quick to join Rangvald. Next was Astrid's bullied friend, Magnus Brand. He looked around as if shocked that his name had been called. This brought about good-natured laughter from the spectators. Turning red, he joined the other two. Katla Hagen, a very pretty girl, was the next, then followed by Torben Knutsen, a square-jawed boy who looked a lot older than he actually was. Mjol and Mist Osborne, the only twins turning 13, were called together. They both appeared extremely bored, ignoring the crowd's applause. Pace Ragga, son of Lord Rag, strode out. He was the spitting image of his father, only much younger. Den Badger was next. In his haste, he tripped and fell, much to the amusement of everyone. Bjorn Leifson, an athletic girl, pushed through the crowd and joined the others, confidence and pride clear expressions on her face. Erik Asulf next. He looked directly to his father on the dais and winked smugly. Lord Asulf grinned proudly back. Astrid Mace heard her name called. This is it, she thought, and walked out. She tried to catch sight of her parents, but was unable to through the sea of cheering faces. Ignoring the sick, nervous feeling in her stomach, she tried her best to make her parents proud. The last name that was called was Ivar Dalgard, who at first seemed reluctant to join the others. Then it became apparent that he was out and out, refusing to participate. An argument with his father taking place in front of the entire village, who seemed content to watch and wait. After what seemed the longest minute in history, the father, who was 2 foot taller and wider across the shoulders, simply pushed his son towards the timber dais. He staggered but did not fall. Ivar contemplated leaving, then realized that was never going to be an option. He sighed and slowly joined the others. Standing side by side in front of the entire village, the 13 teenagers were feeling a mixture of pure fear and impatient confidence. Greytree, I give you this year's participants, Forsberg announced, the crowd cheering wildly. Chapter 7. After the opening ceremony, the 13 teenagers were ushered to the staging area of the first trial. The rules to the Elder Trials dictated that at the beginning of each trial, there would be no spectators, and this was for one reason. Due to the complex and dangerous nature of the trials, competitors had to remain focused and sure. This was, after all, the sole reason for their being. A rite of passage to becoming an adult, and the first lesson of which each man or woman could only be done alone. Blindfolded and carried on horseback, they were taken 2 hours west of the village, to an area of forest not many ventured voluntarily. Nightshade Forest, known for 2 reasons. The impenetrable dark green canopy that prevented any sunlight from entering. The other was the extremely poisonous form of deadly nightshade that grew generously throughout. The forest was also known for a very high concentration of creatures and beasts that shied from human contact, and some that hunted them. The horses followed one particular trail into the forest center. Every man present had been chosen because of their previous experience with the Elder Trials. They had also been hand-picked for their steady nerves and unwavering dedication to Lord Asolf. Arriving at a small clearing lit by torches, they unloaded the children, then awaited their lord's command. With all of the children lined up, Asolf nodded, and his men removed the black hoods. Despite the darkness of the forest, the teenagers blinked at the dull light created by the torches. Once they had regained their wits, they stared at Lord Asolf and waited to be briefed on the first trial. "I can see by your expressions that you have no idea where we are." "Nightshade Forest," Erik interrupted. The other children looked shocked. The Grey Watch commander looked at his son suspiciously. "How did you know that?" he pressed. Astrid watched the exchange closely. "We have been riding for roughly 2 hours, the entire time with the sun on our backs, and for the past 20 minutes all I have been able to smell is the bitter, tomato-like stink of Nightshade," Erik smirked. "Impressive," Asolf commented approvingly. He then directed his gaze at the other children. "He is correct. We are all currently standing in the center of Nightshade Forest aside from Erik. Can anyone here tell me what this place is famous for?" Asolf asked. Den timidly raised his hand, and Asolf nodded for him to speak. "Monsters. The forest is full of monsters." Den gulped, and Asolf returned a predatory smile. "He is correct. Your first trial is simple. Make your way back to the village. First person wins, receiving 13 points. Second, 12 points, down to last, who gets a solitary point. However, there is another way in which you can amass points," Asolf said, and on cue, one of his soldiers stepped forward holding a covered object, not much larger than a human head. The object was placed on the ground in front of the children and the black cover removed. It was a small, domed bird cage made of brass. Only what flittered inside had wings, but was not avian. "Pixies!" Emma squealed in delight. 13 small humanoid figures, no more than 4 inches tall, and wings like a dragonfly. Their entire bodies glowed a bright, luminescent green. They were all staring out, gripping the bars of the cage like tiny prisoners. Miss Borg is correct. These pixies have been trained to deliver messages to and from Greytree. Once released, they will fly directly home. There are exactly one of these little creatures for every one of you. If you capture a pixie, be gentle. You do not want to make them angry. Keep them comfortable, return them at the finish line, and receive your 10 points. And, before you ask, you can only catch one each," Asolf said. One of his men sniggered. The commander used this. "Of course, no one has ever been able to. Not in all the years that I've been involved in the trials." The children let the words of Lord Asolf wash over them, the full reality of their situation finally settling in. It had taken them a couple of hours to reach their current location, and that was with the knowledge of how to get there. "The first trial will begin in exactly 10 minutes. Use that time to get ready," Asolf advised. The teens all nodded, including the Lord's son, but unlike him, they didn't really understand how some of the teenagers spent the time attempting to orientate themselves. Others appeared to discuss their options in small groups. Erik and Bjorn kept to themselves, remaining calm and mentally preparing for the task ahead. Astrid thought she had prepared herself for the Elder Trials, but now that she was about to begin the first challenge, she felt completely overwhelmed. She was now wishing that she had taken more of an interest in what was about to happen. Instead of dismissing the trials as laborious chores, Lord Asolf was also watching them carefully, in particular his youngest son. He had trained the boy hard since he was 5 years old, and like his older brothers, Erik had an affinity with soldiering and combat. But there was more to it. He had a thirst, a drive for more. Asolf could see it in his eyes. The boy desired greatness. He didn't mind if the boy had aspirations, as long as they were tempered with decent morality. Only time would tell, he thought. Looking at the other 12 competitors, he didn't think that Erik would have any problem with the trials. Possibly the carpenter's daughter Bjorn Leifson might cause him some problems. She was very fit and determined, but in the end she was only a girl. One of his men nodded, and he knew it was time to begin. Now is the time to say your prayers to the gods and prepare yourself. I'll give you all one piece of advice. To catch a pixie today is a valuable thing, but as you are all aware, they can be mischievous creatures, sometimes prone to leading mortals astray. So don't count on them leading you directly back. Your main priority is to get back to Greytree as fast as you can, Asolf announced. Most of the children were listening intently, their nervous, frightened faces hoping any information now gleaned might give them the edge. And lastly, there are many beasties in this forest, but the greatest threat you will face are your own fears. Remember your training over the past couple of months, and you'll all do fine, Asolf said, although he wasn't really that sure about a few of them, in particularly the Badger and Dalgard boys. But that wasn't for him to judge. He signaled one of his men to open the cage and release the pixies. They escaped from their small confinement in an explosion of green light. The tiny winged creatures flew in all directions, disappearing into the trees around them. On behalf of the village, we wish you all a safe return. On 3, 2, 1, go, Asolf said in a loud, clear voice. Erik was the first to move, his natural athleticism and competitive nature leading the charge. 1 second he was there, the next gone. Bjorn was next, although she didn't follow directly behind 5 of the others. Pace, Katla, Borg, Torben, and Rangvald knew their best chance of getting through quickly was to head in the same direction as Erik. The 2 Osborne girls felt similar sentiments towards Bjorn. They raced after the taller girl, hand in hand. That just left Den, Iver, Magnus, and Astrid, their close friendship holding them together. The 3 boys looked towards Astrid, whose brow was crossed. "What do you think?" Iver asked, sweat beginning to run down his cheek. "I think we should follow Erik," Den interjected quickly. They eyed the path in which he had taken. Makes sense. Who better to find their way back to Greytree than the son of Lord Asolf? Magnus replied, and prepared to follow in the larger boy's footsteps when he was stopped by the blacksmith's daughter. "What's the matter?" Den asked. "I remember hearing something about this place," Astrid said, frowning, struggling to remember. "What is it?" "The longer we wait, the greater the head start the others are getting on us," Magnus said. Astrid ignored the smaller boy as she delved into her memories. She was about to give up when the thought struck, her eyes going wide. "Of course," she cried. "Of course what?" Den pressed. "Lord Asolf said that we were at the center of the forest. I remember seeing a map of this area when I was only a small child. There are mountains further west, known as the Giant's Playground. A wide river lies at its feet. I remember this river because it had an unusual name. The Might of the Serpent," Astrid said happily. "I don't understand why this river is important. And where is it?" Iver asked. "It's north of here." "North? We need to be going east." "Even I know that," Den said, annoyed. "If you'll let me finish. The river tracks from west to east, towards the Great Water. If we travel north just a little bit, we'll find this river, and then we can simply follow its banks, which will lead us south of Greytree. From there we can easily find our way back," Astrid said happily. The other boys didn't like the idea of veering directly away from where the others had gone, but Astrid's logic couldn't be argued. If it meant not wandering around in circles getting lost, then that was something they could all live without. "Well, since no one here can think of a better solution, I think we should take it." "That is, of course, if you're willing to lead us," Magnus said with a grin, knowing full well she wouldn't pass up the opportunity to be in charge. "Sounds fair to me," Astrid replied, returning his grin. With the blacksmith's daughter leading the way, they left the starting position and headed due north into the thick, dark woods. They managed to find a game trail winding in the direction they were heading. narrow but easy to find. Magnus deduced that it must be track the animals used to lead to water. This idea filled the others with hope that Astrid had been right. "Everyone keep your eyes open. Lord Asulf was right. There are all manner of beasts roaming about," Astrid warned. The trees within the nightshade forest were tall and long-reaching, their thick branches blocking out most of the sunlight above. The 4 teenagers were able to walk under the lowest branches with ease, but the dim light was making them all nervous and edgy. "I heard the worst is the demograg. It looks similar to a regular stag, except that its horns are more like jagged knives. And it has the fangs and paws of a wolf," Ivor said nervously. "That's just an old wives' tale to scare babies like you," Den replied. However, he too was looking pale and afraid. "You two should know better than anyone that while those old childhood tales are designed to scare the young, they do have some basis of truth in them. So how about we all keep our voices down and try and listen out for any signs of danger," Astrid said. It was almost as if on cue when the sound of a deep and resonant wolf's howl ripped through the surrounding area. Subconsciously, they all pulled in closer together. "I'm sure it's not a demograg, but that howl does belong to a timber wolf, and they are known to travel in packs," Astrid said firmly. They were all in possession of a dagger. This was enforced by the Thorn Trinity on all those participating, and up until now, they had all worn them on their belts. Once the wolves had sounded their calls, they all pulled them from their sheaths and held them nervously. "We need to go faster. I don't want to be stuck out here overnight," Ivor said, and despite his generous girth, he pushed past the other boys, including Astrid, and took off down the thin trail. "Wait, Ivor, wait!" Astrid called out. "He doesn't know these woods. None of us do," she muttered. "Let him go. We all know he'll run out of puff before he's even out of sight." Den chuckled. A scream echoed ahead. They all froze. "What was that?" Den whispered, but they all knew the answer. Before the badger boy had uttered the words, "Eivor," Astrid said, and they all raced off down the trail. Erik Asulf was making good time, the hard training he had to endure from his father over the years, making the first trial seem easy. He heard a branch snap, some distance behind him. It was the Raga boy, Pace. Others had followed him. He knew the weaklings would, but they had been unable to match his speed, all except Pace, and despite his best intentions, the son of the other Trinity member was doing well to keep up. Well, not for long, he thought, as he crouched down low behind a fallen tree trunk. Nobody was going to ride on his coattails, and the sooner they knew this, the better Erik could hear Pace stomping along the trail. He too had been trained well over the years, but his father lacked the necessary skills to make him a truly formidable foe. In comparison, the Raga boy sounded like a pregnant cow lumbering down the trail. The occasional curse of complaint let Erik know exactly where the boy was. "Where the hell did he go? I swear, I just saw—" He never finished his sentence as Erik jumped up from his ambush position and struck the shorter boy hard from the left side. Pace never even saw it coming. 1 second he was peering through the dim light. The next he was laying sprawled out, courtesy of a punch to the head from Erik Asulf's son checked the fallen boy, to make sure he hadn't accidentally killed him. Satisfied that the smaller boy was still breathing, he looked around to ensure that there were no witnesses, and continued on along the trail. The floor of the forest was covered in waist-high ferns and shrubs. That and the lack of sunlight made it very hard to see anything. Astrid's heart was beating so hard that she could barely hear anything around her. "Ivor! Ivor!" They were all calling out as they struggled to find their friend. Their echoed voices were the only response. They rounded a sharp bend and entered a small clearing. Stopping, the 3 of them tried to see what had happened to Ivor. A stiff, cool breeze lapped at the ferns around them, but apart from that, there was no sign of the chubby teenage boy. "Where did he go?" Magnus whispered. "There is no way he got that far ahead of us," Astrid replied, her eyes frantically scanning the area around them. A leaf fluttered down lazily, landing on her shoulder. Without thinking, she looked up, and barely suppressed a scream. that seals today's tale in shadows. We hope Raven's prophecy, the Elder Trials, has drawn you deeper into its enigma. Return soon to Crow's Quill's books, where the next chapter awaits, whispering secrets yet untold.